Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Welcome, everybody. It is time for the Books That Make You show. I am your host, Desiree Duffy, and today we're talking about books that make your heart fill with poetry. Yeah, poetry. It's the language of our hearts, isn't it? It lifts us up, moves us, inspires us in so many ways that we often can't imagine until we're right there in the throes of reading that beautiful passage. You know, whenever I meet somebody who says they don't read poetry, I suspect they've never really tried. Our guest today is an award-winning poet, AlonzO Gross, or Zoe Alonso. He is a songwriter, a rap artist, an actor, a dancer, a recording artist, a playwright, and a screenwriter too. He's a Renaissance man, and his short stories were first published internationally in 2005 and in 2006 in the Sane book series, which was published by Evelyn Fazio. His first book of poems was entitled Inspiration, Harmony, and the World Within, and that was published in 2012. Also in that same year, he was awarded Best Spoken Word Poet at the Lehigh Valley Music Awards. Then, you got quite a list here. Then in January of 2018, he released his second book of poetry, and that was entitled sOuL, The Writings of ZO. And then in June of 2021, ZO released his third book of poetry, and that was titled Poems for You and Yours. And in April of 2022, he won first place in the Bookfest Awards. Congratulations on that. Now, ZO is a graduate in the field of English literature and dance from Temple University. He is, like I said, a true Renaissance man. Zoe looks forward to releasing music and CDs and acting and producing films, as well as new books of poetry and art. Zoe, you have so much going on. I can't wait to find out all about it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So let me ask you this, because I hear this every once in a while. I don't read poetry. I don't get books in poetry. I'm just not into it. What do you say to people who tell you that they don't really read or like poetry?
I ask them if they're who their favorite musical artist is, and depending on what they say, I'm like, well, you've been listening to poetry the whole time. If I met a gentleman that said he wasn't into poetry, but he loved Prince, I said, well, you are into poetry if you like Prince. Or if you listen to anyone like that, or Michael Jackson, or anyone, Bob Dylan, if you're into those gentlemen, you're definitely into poetry. So I get them to look at it from a different perspective that way. To maybe because I come from a musical background as well, and a lot of my artists that I'm inspired by are musicians. So I would tell anyone, who's your favorite musician? Chances are they're poets as well, like the Beatles, one of my favorite groups of all time. They all wrote poetry. So that's how I would get them to look at it from a different scope.
Yeah, exactly. And, we can look up song lyrics online nowadays, but I remember back in the day, that was the great part of having an album, right?
Absolutely.
Or a CD, reading the lyrics and then listening to it, because it was like an entirely different experience when you were reading the words, because you're right, they're just like poetry, aren't they?
Exactly. And people don't see it that way. The first time I really connected to poetry with songwriting was when I first listened to the Beatles Sgt. Pepper album. It was before my time, but I had the CD and I looked and I was like, wow, they put the lyrics in there. And to me, it looked like a poetry book. And the songs and the way it read, I'm like, this looks like a poetry book. And that really inspired me to combine, the poetry with the literature and the music, and also the Doors, huge influence, Jim Morrison, the Lizard King. He was definitely a poet first and a rock star second, but he was able to bring those things together. So I'm really inspired by those type of artists.
Oh, yeah. And I can see you doing so much of that too. So
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do you see a resurgence in poetry lately? The last couple of years, have you seen it more so than in the past?
I have, especially with COVID. Like when I wrote my book, it was during the throes of the COVID outbreak, and a lot of us writers, a lot of us are antisocial anyway, so we just did what we do naturally. But we were inside. We had a reason to be inside, and a lot of books came out of the COVID era. No disrespect to anyone who's suffered during the COVID era, but there's been a surge, like a renaissance, if you may, of literary works that came out during the COVID, and it still is ongoing. So I think there's definitely a resurgence, like a renaissance that came out of that. That's still, like I said, that's still coming on strong.
Yeah, I agree so much. I think that there's always the bright side to bad things. And one of the bright side, like you said, so many people suffered and are still suffering.
Yeah,
there's so many ramifications. But it did have this beautiful part of it. Just like if you look at the Renaissance was born out of the Dark Ages and the plague. Whoa. And yeah, so sometimes maybe you have to kind of break things down, and you have to have, you have to go through a little bit of hell, excuse my French, in order to get to the bright side of things.
Absolutely. I definitely saw it that way. So I saw it as a positive thing. But I had to, a lot of us, I think we had to dig even deeper. We couldn't really go out as much and go here and go there. Even Starbucks was closed, which is like my haven. Even they were closed, the gyms. So us writers, us artists had to go inside, and because we had no choice. And it was either make it or break it. You had to write or die, and you had to get that stuff out. And we're seeing a lot of that now. Yeah. I'm grateful to be alive and to be contributing work out there.
Exactly. So tell us about Poems for You and Yours. Give us the lay of the land.
It's like I said, I started writing it around 2019. And then a little bit, I was still, the way I write, I write a whole bunch of poetry, and I'll take the ones that I think are, I create my poetry book like an album or a painter, or write a whole lot of pieces, and I see if there's a theme there, and then I follow that theme. And whilst I was writing that, that's when the COVID outbreak hit. And I was like, oh boy. So I was able to go even deeper, but the book is mostly about spirituality, and how to come out of that. Because we were still going through that in the world. The world was going through that. And I said, I want to put out a book that reflects that time, like a time capsule of the COVID era, and put something that's spiritual and has hope and meaning, and also put like a musical aspect to it. And I love for my books to look like albums. That's why the way my book looks, it looks like an album from the 60s or 70s, because I'm inspired, like I said, by music. So I wanted to do something totally different, and make use of that time that we were locked down, and just present it to the world. And I'm grateful that, people are really responding to it.
Yeah. And is this why, and I'm pulling this from the materials that you sent, when you say that your poetry has the power of dream travel, magic conjuring of a parallel universe, a heaven universe of love, truth-telling, wisdom, and mythos. Is that where that comes from?
That was actually, Barnes & Noble said that. They reviewed the book. They said that, and they wrote that as a description to put my book on Barnes & Noble. So that's how they described it. I was like, wow, that was really poetic how they described it. But when I look at it, it does encapsulate those things. And I tried to make it seem like a dream, an escape, if you will, from what was going on in the real world. So I guess that, that was a very apt definition of the book.
Yeah, it did. It grabbed me when I was going through all your materials. Like, oh, that's a really cool description.
Yeah.
You must have really touched the copywriter or the person who wrote that for them to be inspired to write it that way.
Oh yeah, I'm grateful. Very grateful. Very grateful for that.
Tell me about your creativity. Why is it important for you, Zoe, to be creative? What is it that drives you?
It's like the air, and like I said, you mentioned earlier that I do a lot of stuff, but I feel like it all comes from the same wellspring, like the dancing, the poetry, the acting, it all comes from the same wellspring. Us artists have to do that. It's like our air, it's our therapy. And while we're writing these things, and we're not only helping ourselves with therapy, we're helping others that may, relate to what we're writing. So it's so important to get that out. And it's actually, it's our duty. And I would say it's selfish to not share your gifts, all your gifts, to the world. The world needs it. I know I've when I was going through a lot of things, there was music I could reach out to, like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, and songs by the Beatles that when I was going through it, they said the exact same thing that I was feeling at the time. And that's our job as artists, to make this world just a little bit better, than what it is without having us in the world contributing. So that's my whole thing. I just want to contribute to the whole thing. I'm just one part of the piece of the puzzle. So other artists, and we're all responsible to make this world a better place, a more enjoyable place through literature and art, music, what have you. So I see it as a responsibility and a duty and a pleasure to create.
Oh, that's amazing the way you put that. And it goes back to what we were talking about in the very beginning. When you're reading poetry or music and experiencing it, it really is something that you can feel in your heart. And you're so right how you can be reading something or listening to a song, and all of a sudden the lyrics just kind of like they hit you because they feel like they're talking to you. And as an artist, for you to be able to put that out there in a way that's helping people to heal or cope with something, that's really powerful and amazing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But and mostly too, I tell people that have gotten writer's block. I say if you look at it as a writer's block, that's where you went wrong. For me as a writer, I don't really see myself as writing as more as letting the gift or whatever express itself through me. I just get out of the way and I interpret. But I think people, where they go wrong, they try to write. And if you let that whatever inside you, that spirit, the God of your understanding, if you let that thing create through you, you won't have writer's block like that. And it'll flow if you just let it guide you, and you're just an instrument. So that's how I look at it too as well. I see this book very much as a collaboration between me and the universe. I hear a lot of poems in my head, and I know that they don't really come from me. They come from somewhere else. My job is just to be grateful for receiving it and share it and interpret it. And that's the way I see it. And that's how this book was made too as well. I stayed out of the way of the creation and just let it flow and put it out there. Mm-hmm. And like I said, the way people are reacting to it, I know it's not from my own will. It has to be some type of energy that's working, with me to get this out, for a bigger agenda. So it's very important.
Sure. Well, we are all made of star stuff, right?
Absolutely.
That's what Carl Sagan said. So we are part of the universe. We therefore are the universe. So you, Zoe, are part of the universe. It seems like, however you want to look at it spiritually, we've kind of segmented and decided that we're these individual souls, but it goes back to the fact that at the core, we're all connected, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And we can all help one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I like that you're bringing up tips for your process and ideas for writers too. So do you want to unpack that a little bit further and talk about tips or suggestions for writers or people that are exploring their creative side?
Yeah, I could tell a quick story. When I was going through my quote unquote writer's block, there was a book that I looked at. It was a journal. It was called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I'm not sure if you heard about that book. And in the book, she talks about just getting out of the way. And she recommends doing three longhand journals each morning. And when you have writer's block, and each day is coincides with the message and encouragement as to your creative process. Within that writing, all the time, you unpack a lot of things, and you get things out. And it's very, very, very important for writers, I believe, to not only read a lot, but to journal. The same way a bodybuilder has to go to the gym and eat right. Our job as writers is to definitely do the things that will help us bring insight to our readers. So if that means we have to get up in the morning and journal and read certain books that give us insight, it's our duty and to do these things to help other people. So it's not just about the writing. It's about, like I said, getting out of the way and going through these processes. And the more I write, or more a person writes rather, the more you discover yourself. It's more about self-discovery. So in these writings, oftentimes I write these books and I look and I'm like, I don't remember writing that, because I was so in the thralls of the creation process. And I would just say for the writers, just to let go more, just to let go and trust. I know it sounds cliche, but trust the process. It'll always be there for you. It's in abundance as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, So would I be putting you too much on the spot if I asked you to either read something, recite something, rap something? Can you do something for us right now?
Well, I could do something. I remember when I was in 8th grade, my teacher, the first time I got into poetry, our teacher made us recite a line from The Raven. And I was very, very young then. And I still remember that, the verse from The Raven, which goes, "But the raven sitting lonely in that placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he flutters, nothing further than he mutters, till I scarcely more than uttered, other birds have flown before. On the morrow she will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Now that's from Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. The reason why I brought that up is because I was maybe like 7 or 8 when I had to memorize that, and here I am in my 40s, and I still remember that. And that just goes to show the power of poetry. And that was like that was the first time that I really embraced it. And I just wanted to share that with the readers, to know that these things will stay with you forever. The things that you love, they'll stay with you forever. That's been with me for like I said, over 35 years. I'll definitely read one of my pieces in the show, but I wanted to share that to make an example.
Oh, I love that. And I love The Raven. I love Poe.
Yeah.
Just like you, I can remember as a student being forced, they forced you to read it. And then afterwards, like, oh, that's the thing. It's like, give it a chance. You don't know you're going to like it until you do it.
Yeah. So I got to thank that teacher, Mr. Lewis, rest in peace. He's the one that made us read that. And we had to every day recite it. We'd forget. And he would give us tips on how to memorize and how to actually speak our poetry as well. Mm-hmm. So learning from Edgar Allan Poe is what really inspired me to get into poetry as well from an early age.
Right. Well, and that's a message to parents and teachers nowadays too. Remember to let your kids explore poetry. Buy them a poetry book. Read to them. Read with them, because it's going to inspire their entire lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So you said you could read something of your own for us too?
Absolutely. I'll read one. This is a poem I wrote. Well, I was received, called God or Schizophrenia. And it encapsulates what I was referring to about not knowing if it's you and getting out of the way. So this one's called God or Schizophrenia, from my book, Poems for You and Yours. Sitting on the stairs, dark nights in my prayers, speaking aloud to God, asking, why, oh, why are things so dang hard? It won't kill you, a voice said. I am merely showing you the real you, sitting on the stairs. Wait, what? Was this all in my head? Yes and no. I give you shortcomings to help thee to grow. God, yep, whatever you want to call me, your miracle of life, your sight, your light. That's right, it's all me, expressing me through you. I give mine blessings for you to do what you do. Okay, God, but I don't know how much more I can take. And how are you so sure that I'm not going to break? Because I see all, past, present, as well as things to come. Wherefore I know, though you fall, you shalt rise as the sun. Lord, can I be frank? I already know that you will. Why so many good people getting killed? Everyone has a date. That's all I can say. Plus your human mind couldn't fathom plans divine anyway. Just know I will give you a long life, prosperity, health, children, and a beautiful wife. Many of these things have already come to pass. Share your gifts with the world. That is all that I ask. For I bless you with them so that you could be a blessing. My words through you will help others who aren't stressing. Everything that happened, my son, is meant to be. Just know the Lord your God shall never have no coward ever represent me. Tears within my eyes, I rose from the stairs. Redeemed it seemed. Dark nights in my prayers. No more panic and cold stares. Manic or mania. Church or asylum. God or schizophrenia.
Oh, that is lovely.
Thank you so much.
Bravo.
Thank you so much.
Bravo.
Thank you.
What an amazing poem. Oh my goodness. You got me. You got me right here.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Don't be sorry.
I know. I was inspired. There was a book I read called The Conversations with God. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that book. Neil Donald Walsh. He wrote a book about like conversations that he was having with God. He wasn't sure if he was crazy or if it was really God. But the thing was, the insights that he was getting from this conversation were so profound that it would only make sense that it was something higher speaking through him. So that was inspired by that. And I want to just write it from my perspective. It was actually a conversation that I had with God, if you may. So, but I appreciate you give me a chance to read it. When I read it and I actually was done with it, I'm like, wow, it was such a air that, I needed to feel that. I needed to hear that myself,
Yeah, it's got a powerful impact. So let me ask you this.
Mhm.
And don't answer Oprah, because everybody answers Oprah. So I'm not going to let you answer Oprah. Don't say Oprah.
Okay.
But
Mhm.
if right now you could hand your book to one person in the world and be guaranteed that they're going to read it, that they're going to read that poem and all your other poems, who would you hand your book to?
Somebody in the world right now?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question. Wow. Wow, that's a very good question.
And I won't let you say Oprah.
Oh, I won't. Yeah, that's very, I know that's very, I say Paul McCartney.
Oh, very nice.
Paul McCartney. He's a poet. Like I said, he wrote so many beautiful songs. It would have been John, but he's no longer here. But definitely Paul McCartney for the songs that he wrote. And as a thank you for inspiring me for all the songs and like the song he wrote, Blackbird, and all those songs like In My Life. In particular, those songs, I would give it to him as one of the, I guess there's only two Beatles left, as one of the half, the Beatles. I would definitely, and him being a songwriter, I would hope that he would understand where I came from, because a lot of their songs came from the same place, because their insights were so profound, which is why people still love their music 60 years, 50 years later. So Paul will be the man. I've always wanted to give him, I've actually tried to look for his number, his email, to see if I could get it to him. So Sir Paul McCartney would have a book.
Yeah. Oh, you're definitely right. The Beatles have had such an impact, and Paul himself. You're right. Paul and John, they were, I think, kind of the creative leaders as far as writing the songs and everything. But he is.
And I always tell people, I said it's not a coincidence that Paul and John Paul, the Pope, John Paul, their names are biblical. So their names are biblical. John Paul. And they write all those songs. I always believe that they were blessed. Their music was blessed, and they came at a time after like the Kennedy assassination. The world needed healing. Like I said, the world needed healing. Here come these four dudes, and they just changed the landscape and they forever. So again, Paul, if you're out there, got a book for you, man.
There you go. There you go. So now, because you're so prolific and you have so many different projects going on, can you tell us a little bit more about some of the other things that you're working on too, Zoe?
Well, yeah, I'm working on an audiobook for sure with the Poems for You and Yours, but it won't just be an audiobook. It'll be like music as well, will be accompanied by that. And a lot of my songs are poems, rather, sound like they could be rap songs. So those, might be implemented as well. I'm working on a play for next year, a one-man play for all the poems for Poems for You and Yours, which I'll be acting out in theater. So that's going to be sometime next year. We have the Royal Kings and Queens of Poetry that I'm involved with. I'm one of the headliners actually, and we are filming that, and it'll be out sometime next year in the films, like on Netflix and HBO and select theaters around the world. So, and as far as other things too, my music, my rap CDs coming out next year. A few movies. I'm doing a few movies. So I'm just staying very, very busy with every aspect of the arts. It gets hard because I tend to circle a lot. So when people get my work, understand they're getting a very concentrated work, because I have to really because I have so many ideas and things that I have to do. I have to really zero in. So when I actually take that time to focus, what you're getting is something really authentic, and this authenticity of my emotions, because I have to be, because I circle so much. And I just, I'm just happy to get the opportunity to do that. Many people, there's two different people that say I have to do this, I have to do that. I feel like I get to do these things. I get to write, I get to journal, I get to share, these things. So I'm just very grateful. But we have a lot of things going on. I'm just looking forward to it.
Excellent. And that authenticity that shines through. I just got to tell you that. So you do. You talk to so many people, and sometimes I don't know if they really believe what they're saying. But I think part of the reason you're so successful with your poetry and your music and all the projects is just because you believe it and live it and doing it because you love it. And it's just, you're so true to yourself.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I do.
Are there more books coming as well? More
oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm working on a children's book actually too at the same time. My wife does artwork. She's does poetry as well. And so we're working on a children's book for next year. We're also doing like a young adults book. And it's a lot. I never did a children's book, so it's taking me back to my Dr. Seuss days. That's the other person that I fell in love with was Dr. Seuss. The rhyme scheme and the imagination and those worlds that he took you to. I want to do that the same with my books, but I didn't know how challenging it could be to try to, because I come from an acting background. Usually when I write, I get into the character of the piece. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take, I have to actually get into the character of a little boy to write this book. And I have to think little boy thoughts and create, but also have the intellect of an older person. So it's kind of challenging, but it's fun to do those things. I read a book by Robert Greene called Mastery, and I've always loved one of the quotes he talked about, and I memorized it by calling it OCD. Now, the O would be the original mind as a child when they see lights and colors and rainbows and everything's awesome and everything's so beautiful to them. Then they're seeing that as the conventional mind. When you take your talent and you go to school, you learn the technical aspects of that gift, and you get really technical at it and you get really proficient. Then the D is the dimensional mind. When you combine those things together, the love of a child's imagination and the technical aspects, you get artists like David Bowie, Prince, Jim Morrison, and you always have that. So I always try to keep that in my mind, like keep the technical aspects, but keep that childlike wonder with the work. But doing the kids' book, you have to go even more into that. But there's definitely books coming, children's books, and another book, probably 2024, the follow up to Poems for You and YourZ. But we're really working to bring it out to the people.
I can tell you're a hustler. It's brilliant.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations too, because you won not only a Bookfest award, but you've been recognized by so many different awards as well. That's got to feel good, huh?
Oh yeah. I got I was on vacation with my wife in Maryland, and I got the email that I won the International Book Award for Best Poetry Book of the Year, and I was like, "What? Is this a joke?" And then I got another some kind of prize from the World Poetry Foundation in Russia for outstanding work in literary, and they're sending a plaque in the mail. I'm like, is this really? But I said, when you do those things, I feel like you're rewarded for listening to those voices and those instructions. And I think you're rewarded here on earth for doing those things as appreciation and encouragement to keep going. So I'm just grateful for anything that I get like that.
Absolutely. Okay, Zoe, can you tell people where they can go to find out more about you online, find your books, follow you on social media? Give us your details.
Okay. Yeah. Also, my wife and I opened up, we have our own publishing label now called Seed Royal Publishing, my wife and I, eLiXir. So if they go on to AGAZ at seedroyalpublishing.com, they can send us information about what type of books they want to publish, and we can help with all their publishing needs, things of that nature. Also, they can go on my zO Music fan page, at zO Music fan page, to find my music and all my poetry. And there's also www.zOalonzo.com. Has all my information, things coming up, events of that nature, awards, stuff like that. So there's and also on Facebook, of course, zO Alonzo Gross on Facebook, and that's also the same for my Instagram as well. So I'm very accessible, right? Right now I'm grateful to be accessible. There might come a time where I won't be as accessible as I get busy, and it won't be because I don't want to be. It'll be because I have so many obligations, and it will take me longer to get back to people. But for right now, I can get, my turnaround time is pretty good with people reaching out. So.
Fabulous. Zoe Alonso, author of the award-winning Poems for You and YourZ, as well as so many other books, a Renaissance man. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Books That Make You show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
You bet. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching today. You can find out more about us on our website. It is booksthatmakeyou.com. You can also follow on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and of course on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell for notifications so you never miss out on an amazing interview with authors and writers just like Zoe. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please do me one favor and enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show is an award-winning podcast produced by Black Chateau Enterprises.